Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you can hear me, can you please type a one in chat? I hope everyone is doing well. Aussie 12, Megan, good to see you. Hey, hey, hey. Yes, awesome. I hope I'm not too loud. It's nice to meet you, Megan. So today, I do not know how I missed this case. Um, I don't know. Maybe I was living in a hole. I really don't know. But oh my gosh, I think this case has been, um, I think every single episode of everything I can find has been just playing like nonstop. Like at first, okay, I hope nobody like, I know people are going to be like, oh my God, Inky or Rhea, like, how could you possibly defend this woman? Because at first, like, I totally was just blown away and I was like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for her, no, maybe she was just really manipulated." And granted, yep, she probably was. Um I'm not her. I don't know what exactly was going on in her head at the time of her making some of these decisions, but what I can say is from everything that I've heard, read, is beyond me. It has fascinated and disgusted me also. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. I just can't. So, if you're not familiar with it, this is the Doomsday Murders, the Daybell case. For those that will be coming in, um, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. So, um, you ready for me to jump right in? I would like to say hi to anyone that is coming in. Welcome in. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you can. Let's see. I thought I heard, yeah, no kidding. I know. I know. I I totally was like in empathizing with this woman, and then I had to sit down and actually, really take a good look at the evidence that they were presenting, and I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way. There's no way that, and coming from, someone who was manipulated and abused and all that, I have no room to talk. I'm just saying, I have no room to talk. But it's that easy when someone has a type of charm about them where they can just say things the right way to get you to believe them is remarkable. That's a whole feat on its own. I'm telling you, like, I wish I had some of that, just a little bit, but then again, no, I don't. So, anyways, let me. Mm, yeah, I don't even know where to start. I really don't. Okay, so here, I'm gonna add this one to stage. So, in a quiet corner of America, a dark prophecy took root. Two people, drawn together by faith and fear, believed the end of the world was near. They called themselves the Chosen. They believed in light and dark spirits and zombies. Now we know zombies it's just fictitious. But when you are manipulated and you get to that place where you have full faith in this person, um, you know, you believe what they say. Especially if okay, so for instance, like from what I understand, Chad Daybell. Now, please correct me if I miss anything. But like Chad Daybell, he grew up in the LDS, and so did she. So they have certain belief systems that may be different than typical Christianity, or per se like Catholicism or Judaism or any other belief system. Now, what I did realize was that a lot of their, I want to say warped way of thinking was like a mix between Christianity and almost a mix of Judaism, and then like wicked, like witchcraft of some sort. So it was very interesting to really dig in and pay attention to this. So I wanted to do a stream on it. Let's see here. And if I miss a message, I promise I will go back and catch up with it. So Megan says, my degree is in psychology, and I was yelling my head at it all. Exactly. Like you want to be like, hello, hello, McFly. Like, are you really, believing this? But I mean, it can happen. I also, before I get into this, just slightly in her defense, could she possibly be also in fear that she would be next if she did not go with the flow? Now, sacrificing your children is not acceptable in any shape or form. But could she possibly be in fear of becoming the next victim? Hello, Landon. Good to see you. It's so good to see you. I miss your face. You're so cute. Megan says, good point. I wondered that too. I probably spent a good week just trying to make it make sense in a way that, maybe she somehow, some way is in fear of her own life. Maybe when he said, okay, the kids are in a safe place, maybe she truly thought that, like, but then I go back and I look at these stories that they were texting each other, and I'm like, I just can't. I can't. Okay. So let me move on. But what began as an apocalyptic belief ended in cold-blooded murder. This is a chilling story of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, and so-called the Doomsday couple, and the innocent lives destroyed by their twisted convictions. Lori meets Chad, and this is back in the early, like, I think 2018. Lori Vallow, a devoted mother, active churchgoer, and fan of End of Times podcast, meets Chad Daybell at a religious conference. Chad is a former cemetery sexton. Now, if you're not sure what sexton is, they dig graves, and a doomsday author. So Chad was already into the whole doomsday idea, like the whole end of times thing. He claims he can speak with the dead and God. Now, that's saying a lot. Like, we all can talk to God. You can talk to God. I can talk to God. Depending on who your God is, we can all talk to God. But for him to respond, maybe a whole nother story. And I think he truly thinks that he can hear him. And those might be the little voices in his head that he may have needed medication for and should have got it sooner than later. He tells Lori that she's a goddess and sent to prepare the world for Christ's return. If that is in your belief system, so be it. That is in her belief system. She was part of the LDS church. And so with that being said, she really thought that, feasibly, this could be true. I think she's a little starstruck by him also. And, she got into reading his books and whatnot. This case was like 45 minutes. Oh, I'm so sorry, Landon. Ooh. I bet it was a lot of interesting stuff going on in your neighborhood. Me too. Also, I agree. Yep, same here. But does he audibly respond? I can't say I've ever heard that. Can't say I've ever heard an audible response. Now, say for instance, you have a decision to make and you're stuck between, is this a good idea or is this a good idea? And then you make a decision and something negative happens out of it, then I'm like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Or vice versa, like you do something you weren't sure about and then it turns out to be good, then I'm like, okay, well, this was in God's graces. This is what was meant to be. I've noticed that, Landon. I have noticed that. He shows you more than he speaks. Anybody who says that he audibly talks, I would really like to talk to that person, because that's just, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he needed some medications. He tells Lori she's a goddess, sent to prepare the world for Christ's return. She believes this. Together, they begin crafting a bizarre spiritual framework, one of where some people are already dead, taken over by our dark spirits. Again, there is some cultures that do believe in, you know, a dark spirit entering a body and then them being having to be taken out. That's out of my pay grade. Okay. So blah, 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 blah. So Charles Vallow's death in July of 2019, Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, grows increasingly concerned. He tells the police she's delusional. Well, I probably would have too. I probably would have said, you know what? My significant other is delusional. They're saying they're talking to these people, or yeah. Mm-hmm. Off to the funny farm. That she thinks that he's possessed. Then I would have that would have been my first red flag, either a divorce or some serious mental help. Either way. And again, she's getting involved with this writer, this novel writer, who is a writer about the end of times. And now she has maybe going through her midlife crisis, because if she's going from this very, well-known, amazing mom to going off the deep end, this very well could have been, her going through like a midlife crisis that she didn't get help being pulled out of. And she just happened to go through that midlife crisis with a serial killer from what my perspective is. And that is what he's being convicted of. So that is not alleged. That is a conviction. So soon after, Lori's brother, Alex Cox, shoots Charles dead in what is claimed in self-defense. Lori's, she's calm and cheerful, and she's like laughing and just cutting it up with the police in the police department during her interview. Like when you go in, like something happens, you go in for a little interview and interrogation. And she has this conversation. She's sitting there just like all calm, cool, and collected. I would be hysterical. I'd be like, my brother-in-law just mucked out my spouse, and she has like not a freaking care in the world. It's just beyond me. Red flag. Let's catch up with some chat. Okay. So shows me more than speaks. Yeah, very weird. Let's see. Must be something in the potatoes, right? No doubt. Hey, now I used to really like potatoes, but I just can't do it anymore. I would not be calm. I could not be calm or laughing when it came to dealing with law enforcement. I just could not. And that's your significant other. I mean, this is your bread and butter. You get to stay home and take care of the kids, and she's just, I couldn't believe it. Unreal to me. Unreal. Okay, so let's catch up. So, now Charles is growing like increasingly concerned. Now I have concerns about some of the things that he did during this whole process. Like he went on a date with this woman that he met, and seemed to told this woman about his whole life history with Lori, which I think she did pretty good as being, pro se, her own attorney. I mean, I wouldn't have done that myself if I was in her shoes, but hey, this is Lori. So, with that being said, so going back to Alex saying that he shoots Charles in what he claimed to be self-defense. Um, he had very little to no remorse. He was like a little upset, but didn't show like, oh my God, I just mucked out my brother-in-law. And I understand why, his niece was involved, his sister is involved. I get it. And so Chad and Lori were already romantically involved, and Charles was just, I believe, just in their way. And during the court case, that the prosecutors actually revealed a lot of this evidence right there. Now, if we pause right there in that little section where Charles gets shot, we have to remember earlier that day, Charles was on a date with another woman. Now, could Lori been jealous and found out? And that's how that happened, and it just won't come out. Um, did she already kind of know about this? And she expressed this to Chad, like, I'm there's so many conversations that we don't know what took place. Like, I mean, these two talked, they had phone calls. All we have is some text messages to go off of. So when Lori says, you don't know the whole story. No, we don't know. Can you tell us? But I think at the same time, maybe she's afraid to tell us because, she may be next on the chopping block. I never thought a midlife crisis. Um, I think I'm only thinking of that because of like where she sits age wise. So it says never thought of the midlife crisis thought. Okay, so she was what, in her mid 30s or 40s, early 40s somewhere. You know, that's about the time, you're seeking. Women start seeking, men start seeking. And was he was her husband seeking? And so then, so how I think they said they were married for like 15 years. If anybody knows, let me know, because I don't remember the exact timeline on that. Let me see if I can pull it up. Hold on. Let's see. Here. I have a little bit of a timeline. So it says that, so in 2018, Lori meets Chad. Mid 2018, Charles Vallow's killed via gunshot. And then children reported missing. Okay, so in 2019, let me show you guys this. Let me see. Can I share this? Let me see if I can share this. Doesn't it kind of make sense? Hold on. Let me see if I can share this. Hold on. How do I share it? Here. Image files, share screen. Okay, let's see. Okay, here is the timeline. I hope you guys can see it. Oh, Landon. Night, sweetheart. So here's the timeline. Okay, so I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. I hope so. So Lori meets Chad. Now, I believe, according to some of the witnesses, she was reading about him previous to meeting him. So, like, say 2017, she was really getting into these, these books. Um, and I think she got a little bit of a crush, not necessarily on him, but the way he spoke, the way he presented information. And then when she got to meet him and talk to him on the phone, he talked so soft and so calm, and in a way that it was probably a little more calming to her than her current relationship that she was in. And then, who knows how long, Charles may have been, you know, seeing other people um, on the side, being that he was on dating sites and whatnot. And I can't talk bad about him. He's not really here and he can't really defend himself. And, there's no real proof that, that was the reason. I'm just speculating on that one. Here, trying to zoom in. So you can see here on the timeline. You can see here on the timeline how these things were like back to back to back to back. And there was like almost a whole year, or at least a whole year, between the time they met and the time where, then the children went missing. It's so bizarre. I'm going to leave this timeline up for a few minutes. And just so you can kind of like follow along. So Charles Vallow's death was in July of 2019, and whom is, Lori's husband. And he's growing concerned. He's telling the police that she's delusional and that she thinks that he's possessed. Well, maybe she thinks he's possessed because he's off, meeting these other people. Okay. Soon after that, Lori's brother Alex Cox shoots Charles dead in what was claimed to be self-defense. Lori stays calm and, almost cheerful, like she's celebrating this, because, he's gone. She doesn't have to worry about him anymore. The prosecutors later revealed that Chad and Lori were already romantically involved, and Charles and he was just in their way. Now, the disappearance of Tylee and JJ. So 2 months later, Lori moves to Rexburg, Idaho. So 2 months after the passing of her husband, the murder of her husband, she packs up her 16-year-old and her 17-year-old and moves to Rexburg, Idaho. Now, mind you, she doesn't know anybody there. She doesn't have any family there. They're all in, like Utah, Arizona, Texas, all over the place, including but not limited to, I believe she leaves her oldest son to fend for himself, So she moves to Rexburg, Idaho with her children, one whom is 16, and that's Tylee, and her 7-year-old son, JJ. In September 2019, both of them just up and vanished. Tylee was last seen at Yellowstone on a family trip, and JJ disappears shortly after that. This was another thing that I may or may not agree with in the court's timeline. Now, she said in her testimony, not testimony, but I guess it's kind of like a little testimony that she did with Idaho News, which I may play. I'm not sure yet. I may play it. It was a great little interview that she did. She said that Tylee had something to do with JJ's death. Now, with that being said, is that feasible? It is very feasible. Could they have been buried at 2 separate times? Very possible. I don't know. Wasn't there. But she keeps saying that Tylee had something to do with that. Now, with knowing, she knows that this evidence has been in court, that it shows that he went first and then, or that she went first and then he did. It doesn't compute of why she would keep saying that unless she knows maybe the disappearance. Unless she knows more about like like maybe they were okay. Do you remember, if anybody remembers the house that Chad was in? So the house had like this little room, and like he could have been keeping them like hidden in there and stuff. You know what I mean? And they could have it could have happened. And in defense, again, I'm not defending Lori in her delusionalness, but just in case, if we take that step in there and say, hey, well, maybe she's right, maybe she did do it, and the kids were being kept and then they were just buried separately. Just because the court says something doesn't always mean it's factual, or it could be factual but not actually within that time period. So just keep that in mind. Just because the court says this and this happened doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly how it happened, but that's the best way that they narrated it to the jury, and the jury believed it. Yeah. Yes, I thought that. Megan says, yes, I thought that. It made no sense at all. I don't know why Lori would insist on a certain scenario. It would not free her from the guilt of all the other stuff going on, right? She's already doing the time. And the baby's not there to defend herself. And I say baby, she's 16. I get it. But to me, kids are always kids. So she's not there to defend herself or say she didn't do it. But maybe there is some truth to what Lori is saying. You can't always take what you hear in court as gospel. Or maybe she is totally convinced that, or that she has justified that to her. Or he justified that to her. Exactly. I think he did it. And I mean, that's just my perspective. I think he had something to do with it, and he's just said that to Lori. And because Lori spent so much time believing in this person with the manipulation and the abuse that was going on. And I'm not saying there was like a bunch of physical abuse, but we really don't know. Emotional, mental, financial. He's convinced her of something for her to make that kind of leap down that rabbit hole. Just think about that. He had to convince her something to take that leap down that rabbit hole and leave her family, her kids, everything. And them being just dark doesn't convince me that she went that route. Not that way. I don't think it's just that. I think it's way deeper than that. I think maybe she knew something that she wasn't supposed to know, and he knew that if he could get her away from everybody, she wasn't going to talk. That's just my opinion. So Tylee was last seen at the Yellowstone on a family trip, and JJ disappeared shortly after that. So one of Lori's friends actually lied for her, and telling law enforcement, hey, that she was here, or JJ was here, and now he's on his way back home. But she also did quickly change her story, I think, when she thought that there may be some kind of repercussion for her dishonesty in that. I believe that she told them that she was a family at school or safe somewhere. Okay, so the investigators, they began to grow suspicious, and so did the grandparents. Where are these kids at? Lori said, Lori stays silent, and Chad, now Chad and Lori are publicly tied. There was one point where Chad was like, I don't even know her. Like, you two are married. Hello. So they run off, and they get married. And law enforcement's like, hey, where are your kids at? And she's just acting totally nonchalant, like it's nothing. And that's what makes me think, like, either this woman has completely fallen off her rocker, or she honestly is believing a narrative that he is preaching to her and convincing her that these kids are okay. These kids are all right. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, let me pull this one down. And I'm going to replace it with this one. These are the babies. Aren't they cute? Little babies. Okay, so now we have Tammy Daybell. So now Tammy Daybell, this is Chad's wife. Oh, did we forget to mention? Yes, Chad is married. Oh my gosh. Chad is married to Tammy Daybell, and I believe, they have their own children together. And Chad claims, oh, she died in her sleep. I believe he said she died in her sleep. She had some kind of like heart issue. He said multiple things to different outlets, to like the insurance company or whatever. He said one thing, to law enforcement he said one thing, to the friends he said something else. His stories didn't they weren't all the same. So he goes on to tell these people she died in her sleep. And I guess at first it may have seemed natural for law enforcement. I don't know why they never really did more investigating. I don't know the law there. I don't know if it's not required for them to do an autopsy. I thought it would have been. I mean, don't you think? I mean, I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird myself. Not sure if it's brainwashing. I think it is. I don't know. Do you know if they ever did any kind of like drug testing on either one of them? Like, it sounds like something like he was giving her something, like one of the voicemails or conversations they had recorded. She sounds like almost like she's intoxicated. So I'm curious if was he giving her something to like, I don't know what he could have given her. Like, I don't know, like weed or like, I don't know. I don't know what's out there really that would make her into a state of mind that she could just, I don't know, maybe like Xanax. See, don't you think that's odd too, Megan? Like, why would they not have done drug testing on her to see if she had been on anything? Like, if he had given her something, because I'm pretty sure like Xanax is one of those things that he could give her, and these things happen and she would be less motionless, I guess you would say. She would be more motionless. I know, right? I think that was a big mistake if they didn't, because it could very well have been. He could have been, feeding her some kind of, pharmaceutical or illicit to make her pay more attention to what he's saying than what is really truly going on in their current situation. Right. After the death of her kids too. Here, let me post that one up. So after the death of her kids too, you would think sedation would be on the table for the mother of the deceased children to make her compliant to what he had to say. See? But I didn't, anywhere in nothing I heard did they ever say that that maybe she had been under the influence of anything. They never said she was or she wasn't. And I think I've listened to everything. Okay, so let's discuss about Tammy Daybell. So now Tammy Daybell is Chad's wife. Like, he's currently married. And he says that she dies in her sleep. And, they said it was natural, and they laid Miss Tammy Daybell to rest in a single unit grave space. A lot of times Married couples will have husband and wife, and even sometimes they'll have their spaces for their children. They'll have it all laid out so everyone is in one spot in the future. And she was not. She was in a single space. So within the 2 weeks of Chad and Lori being married, Miss Tammy Daybell has passed on. Authorities exhumed Tammy's body. The autopsy, shocking, the cause of death, asphyxiation. Tammy didn't die peacefully. She was also murdered. Single plot. That's exactly it. Thank you, Megan. Single plot. Yeah, see, it says, you said, makes you think that testing wasn't done. I didn't see anything in there either that I would have even, I mean, if they would have said, hey, we did drug testing and we didn't find anything in their system, then you could have been, okay, then she really is just, bonkers. No, baby, that's perfectly fine. I couldn't remember what it was called. I just, like the little SWAT things, So the authorities, they exhume Tammy's body and they find out that she was asphyxiated. Now, it's getting deep. Okay. Then November 2019, now the children this is becoming public suspicion. Like everybody's going like, where are the kids at? So we have Charles, who just passed away. Now we have Tammy's passed away. The kids we haven't seen for a while. And so now everybody's like, hey, where the babies at? So, extended family reports that JJ and Tylee have been missing. Authorities demand Lori to produce these children, and she just downright refuses. Now, I'm just saying, like, somebody comes up with you with papers and says, this is a writ to produce child, you're not going to want to go to jail. You're going to want to produce the children. So again, this is like, is she having conversations with Chad saying, hey, we need to let the babies, let them know? Or does he have her mind so corrupted that he's like, these police are evil and, they're not going to do anything to you or whatever. He's obviously convinced her that she is not going to get in trouble because this, she's a God-fearing woman and she's a law-abiding woman. I can't imagine her not producing the children, especially after having a writ served to her. Megan says, it was a red flag straight there to make me think something bad had happened to those kids. Exactly. And she refused. She downright refused. Insane. So Lori and Chad, they fled to Hawaii. The nation, the entire world but me had watched this horror going on. And I guess I was under a rock. Like, how did I miss this? Now, I remember I would be flipping through YouTube and I would see her, in court, and she's like cross-examining people, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know what's going on. I never stopped to really get into what she was saying and what this case was about. I've had a little bit of time on my hands and I just came across it and I'm like, wow, this is kind of really interesting. I'm just shocked that I didn't catch it sooner. I really am, because this is, this would have been really interesting to keep up with, a couple years ago. And believe it or not, like, she still hasn't even had sentencing yet. I think her sentencing is sometime this month or something, next month. Okay, let's move on. So now these two children are gone. The husband is gone and the wife is gone. And you got these newlyweds just living up life. And some of the messages that I heard of them texting or talking to each other, I was like, it doesn't even seem like they have a care in the world. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I feel that there should have been more remorse I feel there should have been more remorse on both parties' half. Like, you have children together, you have an adopted son together, and then Chad has his children with his wife, and it's like nothing. I even watched his kids, like his daughter sitting out there, and she's just like kind of joking it up with law enforcement. Like, are you guys done yet? You're making a lot of noise. I'm blown away. I'm blown away. Okay. I can't believe that. And if he, you have to imagine, okay, if his kids are acting this way and he's got Lori acting this way, what is he doing that's convincing them to be so understanding or so willing to do whatever it is that he's convincing them to do? I know, but his kids didn't either. Don't you think that's weird? That was their mom. I'm that was their mom. Like, did he convince these kids, like, mom's not doing well, she's kind of sick. And so they were kind of expecting it. But everything I heard, they said she seemed to be just fine. You know what I mean, Megan? I'm tripping. I am so tripping on this one. It's not just Chad and Lori that don't care. The kids have no remorse. Her brother had no remorse. I don't know. It's like they were all drugged somehow. I don't know if it's like just mentally drugged or physically drugged, but I mean, even the kids were just, his kids were just like, yeah, it's nothing. That's okay. Mom's gone. I'd lose it. I'm just saying, I'd lose it. Okay, so they flee off to Hawaii, and we're all wondering where they're at, and the press dubs them, news everything, as the Doomsday couple, and I'm like, there's no way. I just can't. I cannot. I couldn't believe it. So now, let's see. So the FBI begins doing deep dives in text messages, revealing twisted theology. Lori calling her children zombies. Chad talking about death as a release. So I don't know any theology that says that your children are zombies, especially if any of you know theology. Any children under the age of 12 are not able to be accountable for any of their bad behavior. Their parents still are. So your children are, theology wise, are only accountable beyond the age of 12 when they understand that relationship between them and God. Now, her daughter, Tylee, now she was 16. I believe she was 16. She was a little older, so yeah, she was accountable for her behavior. Now she also had brought up, Lori had brought up, and I know I jump around a lot. She brought up, what was it? That her stepdad was SAing her, and she was having these issues with her stomach. Now, maybe I would love to interview them someday. I really would. Like, maybe somehow, some way, Chad convinced her to, let her be at peace so she doesn't have to go through that pain anymore. I'm very curious of what he said behind closed doors that we'll never know. Like, how did he convince her that nobody in their right mind, I mean, truly in their right mind, believes in zombies? I don't think. I really don't. Or how, death is a release. Well, I could understand that portion of it. The death would release her of her physical pain and emotional pain that the baby was going through, but it's no excuse. And that's not his job to think of that. No, I can't I can't agree with that either. There's nothing they did I can agree with. I can't. So then in June of 2020, the unthinkable. The authorities find JJ and they find Tylee and very shallow graves behind Chad Daybell's home. JJ was wrapped up, and this could be graphic, so maybe I'll skip over this part. Okay, well, JJ was wrapped up in plastic and Tylee's body was burned and dismembered. Now, I mean, if they say that she went first, then how did, yeah, it does. If they say, sorry, he went first, how did she end up dismembered? That again, it's another section that it doesn't make sense. The veil of prophecy has lifted its murder. And I completely agree. I agree that I believe that Chad, this is just my opinion, that Chad had, convinced her that these kids are safe. And maybe, maybe that's something that we really need to look into is there any more like missing kids or, kids that have, passed on? Maybe he has a thing for that. I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there that maybe, just maybe, they are not the only ones. And this is something that needs to be looked into further. We never know. We never know. So Idaho's trial of Lori Vallow was in 2023. She faced the trial in Idaho. She was charged with murder, conspiracy, and grand theft. Now, the grand theft, if you're not sure what that is, I believe that is stealing the money of the Social Security Department because she was still collecting one on someone, that was maliciously deceased. And then, of course, even after the children had passed on, she continued to collect money, which is, anything over, I believe, 10, 2, 5, 10, something like that becomes grand theft. And I do believe there was conspiracy in there. I can attest to that. And of course, we know that there was murder. So guilty on 3 charges. Yes. Conspiracy. I believe she may have been under duress of conspiracy. So I'm just putting that there. I believe that he's done something. There's no way someone in the right mind could make those type of decisions about their children and whatnot, going through all that. Prosecutors present chilling evidence, cell phone data placing her brother at the burial site, digital records, witnesses who testify to cult-like belief systems. After weeks of testimony, the jury finds Lori guilty on all counts. She is sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. Chad Daybell's trial and death sentence was in May of 2024. Chad stands trial. He maintains his innocence, his defense that he was misled or misunderstood. So he's placing the blame on Lori, saying that he was misled by Lori and he misunderstood. I think he has that all twisted. I think that she was misled and of course maybe misunderstood what he was saying, is what I think, in my honest opinion. Just putting that out there. Prosecutors showed the real Chad, a man who wrote about the apocalypse, classified people as light and dark, and cashed in on his wife's death. Yes, he did. The jury convicted him. Chad Daybell is sentenced to death. Now, I do believe Lori is still in Arizona on the conspiracy charges. But now, okay, it says, but justice isn't finished. In 2025, Lori is extradited to Arizona, where she faces 2 more charges of conspiracy to murder Charles Vallow and an attempted murder plot against Brandon Bordeaux. In both trials, Lori defends herself. She cites visions, claims divine authority. Both juries find her guilty. Her sentencing date is for July 25th, 2025. I thought it was this month. Okay. Now let's kind of like dig into the belief system. I kind of dug in a little bit, but let's dig in a little more. What did Chad and Lori really believe? That the world would end in 2020, that 144,000 souls would be saved, and that they were prophets chosen by God. They built a fantasy filled with spiritual warfare and secret codes and light versus dark ratings. But behind it all was something far simpler: power, lust, and control. Now, we have all had the sense of power. We have all had the sense of control, and pretty much everybody's had the feeling of lust, the sense of lust. And lust can take you to, places that you didn't think you would go. It'll take you across the country. It could take you across the world. You find someone, you meet someone, you talk to them, and you're like, oh my gosh, I really kind of like this person. And then, two people come from two different continents, meet, and, whatnot. But that's lust. Love is way deeper. Love is a loyalty thing. So, culture and media impact. So, the Daybell case has gripped the nation: a mother who murdered her children, a lover who manipulated grief and faith. Um, this story has become a cultural reckoning, a warning of how belief unchecked can destroy lives. Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell believed that they were saving the world. In reality, they tore it apart for their families, for their victims, and for communities in mourning. Justice caught up. The echoes of their crimes still haunt us. Not every doomsday ends in fire. Sometimes it just ends in silence. Twisted much, right? It's crazy. But I wanted to share this story because I just over the, very, very short period of time have caught up with it. And I'm just blown away on how I'm a mother. There's many mothers out there that watch the show. And it's just like, how can you put your children at such risk? Why would you know? Like, okay, so she knows this guy is all about doomsday, but she takes her children from their environment and their older brother and moves them closer to this person. And their little narrative, that the conversations they were having about, like, how they were talking to each other. Did you catch that, Megan? How they were talking to each other, like going by these like secret names, and like how, I guess it could be interesting to some. Like, he's like, your body, you're a goddess, and your body's like this and that, and she's like taking videos of her dancing and sending them to him. And I'm like, they were totally sexting. I'm like, what? I'm like, I guess that's how they be doing sexting in the LDS. It's crazy to me. I'm so glad I wasn't the only one thinking this. I know. I'm just I don't even know what to say. I'm beyond stunned. I think I'm still going through the whole shock and awe that someone could have the ability to manipulate another human being to the point of ending their children's lives. And I mean, you hear all the time about how love, like, a spouse cheats on a spouse, and the other spouse goes and, does the wrong thing, takes the situation into their own hands, so to speak. And I mean, and then you hear stories of parents hurting their children, right? Um, but not normally all in one sitting. Not normally all in one sitting. It's very bizarre, extremely bizarre. No doubt. You said, my God is truly smacked by this. Amen. No freaking doubt. Unreal. And, my heart goes out to, the rest of the family members. It goes out to her oldest son. You know, I, dealing with the topics that I deal with on this channel, it's not easy. It's a sensitive place. It's not easy at all. And um I can understand how the kids feel. I can kind of understand how the other relatives feel, but it's no excuse. No excuse for that kind of bad behavior and for doing what they've done. Thank you for hanging out with me, Megan. I greatly appreciate you. And for anyone who watches this afterwards, after it's not live, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if you enjoy it. And I will be touching base again. I think I'm going to do a little more digging on this one just because it's really different. No, you don't talk too much. I love it. Mwah. Thank you. Have a wonderful night.